What's going on, everyone? So Matthew Lillard said something very interesting that I want to talk about, have a friendly discussion down in the comment section below, and then, of course, give my opinion, and I want to hear yours, so let me know down in the comments. But Matthew Lillard says he thinks the new Scream films went in an exciting direction, but thinks they were too violent. I don't think Ghostface ever needs a shotgun. I think that the movies are, everything is trying to repeat what we did in the first movie in a lot of ways. Now, I don't really get why and what he said. Look, obviously, in the sense of trying to replicate what they did, right? With him and, the original classic Scream. You're never going to be able to replicate what they did. I mean, I've already said that, the classic 96 Scream is about as close to a perfect movie as possible. Excellent story, excellent pace and flow. Everything connects, everything makes sense. There's not really any holes or anything that you're just like, wow, they didn't really explain that, or that didn't make sense. Excellent character development, excellent acting, portrayal, all of it, right? Like, top to bottom, excellent film. Writing, directing, storytelling, execution, you name it, perfect. But the film is a slasher horror film. I understand the shotgun element of it, right? That I get. You don't want Ghostface running around with a gun because it's going to be a very quick film. Although, they used the gun, right? And we've seen guns implemented throughout from the very beginning of Scream. Not in the sense of Scream 6, obviously. Like, that was Ghostface run around shooting through a bodega, right? Like, that was a very different element of it. But I don't mind when Scream gets off the knife a little bit. Obviously, you don't want an entire film like that. You don't want an entire film where Ghostface is just shooting everybody, because that would be a very quick, short film. Ghostface would just be running through everybody, right? You want the intimacy of Ghostface with a knife, right? You want those kills. But Ghostface has always been creative. I mean, you look at the classic 96 Scream, it was brutal, right? Not by today's standards. And that's why I don't understand what Matthew Lillard was getting at with it. That's why I don't understand what he really meant by what he said. I mean, the Casey Becker scene with Drew Barrymore, the opening scene, was brutal. It was so brutal that they had to cut like half of it in order to get an R rating. And even then, they didn't really want to give him an R rating. And then you add in also, like, Tatum's scene where she gets crushed by the, and you actually get to see her, like 96 Scream for the time. You got to keep in mind, again, for today's standards, yeah, it's silly, and, it's not what it is compared to today's type of kills and just chaos, but still, like, for the time period, Scream was incredibly brutal. Scream was incredibly dark. And Ghostface went off the knife and did things that were, that people weren't too fond of back then. And so, again, to kind of put it and translate it to modern times, I think that's one of the few good things about Scream 5 and 6. Look, I've been very critical of Scream 5 and 6. Scream is my favorite horror franchise, but just because it's my favorite doesn't mean I can't be critical and want the best for the franchise, right? Like, I'm not so blinded by my fandom in love for the franchise that I don't see the blatant issues with the latest installments and the writing and execution in a lot of ways, right? And, like, as you've watched Scream, the storytelling as well as character development, I feel, has really declined over the years. I feel like, they've gotten further and further away, but Scream 5 and 6, that was one of the great things about it, right? Like, 96 Scream, and just Scream all the way up until Scream 4. Scream 4 was kind of the one that kind of started the more darker, brutal Ghostface. And then Scream 5 and 6, I thought, really just did an excellent job with that. It's more real, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I love Matthew Lillard. I love Stu Macher. I love Billy Loomis, Skeet Ulrich, right? Like, I loved what they did. But Ghostface was very clumsy. and played with their food too much. And, it was silly at times. So much. I mean, that's why Scary Movie is so spot on, right? Because Scary Movie is just, it's an exaggerated version of what Scream 96 was, but it still was pretty, with just like I gotta quit drinking, right? Like, Ghostface is tripping over himself and stumbling and, and just getting evaded by, Sydney. And it's spot on in a lot of ways, right? How Ghostface was back then. And I like that Scream 5 and Scream 6 went with a darker, more brutal, more no-nonsense Ghostface. I thought 5 executed it perfectly. Scream 6, I liked the militant, kind of trained Ghostface. But Scream 5, I thought, as far as the kills and kind of the approach, was the best. Right? Out of all the Scream movies. Just because, again, Ghostface didn't mess around. Right? Think of all the kills from like Vince. And, obviously they toyed and played with Tara, but that was purposeful. Right? They weren't trying to kill her. They were trying to keep her alive to lure Sam there. So it was a different scenario. But beyond that, all the other kills were just to the point. Right? Like Vince and Wes and, I mean, even Judy, right? Like Dewey, hand cut, boom, they lose, and then surprise, boom, boom, right? Like, and he's done. To even Live, right? Like, boom, it's over, right? Like, I really enjoyed that because it's more real. Ghost, like a killer, serial killer, they're not like, they scout, they, survey, kind of get familiar with their target, but they're not over there, playing games and making phone calls and being all set, right? Obviously the phone call element and stuff, you want that because that is Scream. You want there's certain things about Scream that I just don't think you can get rid of because it's just such a part of Scream. But the actual execution of Ghostface and the target, I think, should be a quick in and out, right? Because you don't want to risk somebody coming home or somebody coming in or, you getting caught or, just something happening to where, they fight back or they go get a gun and, it's just now you're dealing with a completely different, right? If you're really, it's more real to me. If you were a killer, you're not trying to go in there and just have a good run around, right? Obviously, we want chase scenes. You want some movie elements to it, right? Like, you think of the classics, right? Like Scream 2 even. Think of the chase scenes, even other movies, right? Like, think of Sarah Michelle Gellar and her chasing in, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or like Tara Reid in Urban Legends, right? Like, there's a lot of just great chasing. So, obviously, you want to have a couple chase scenes, or at least a chase scene in a Scream movie in particular, but I don't mind, outside of like a chase or two, having Ghostface just in and out, right? Because you don't want to, you want to make sure you're getting away with it. You want to make sure that the person that you're trying to take out gets taken out, right? You don't want to risk any of the, things that you can't control or any factors that may present itself, right? The longer you draw things out, the more likely it is that, again, somebody comes and interferes, or somebody sees you, or, somebody calls the cops, or whatever, right? Or they're able to get a weapon or a gun, or it's just get in, get out, take out who you need to, and then move on to the next one. So I did like that. But again, Billy and Stu even, again, were very dark, very brutal. Their characters were designed that way. Yes, Stu was very, comical and goofy and silly and a little over the top at times. But Billy was very dark and mysterious and kind of that, like, the guy you kind of keep an eye on, right? Like, it's just, I don't understand kind of that comment, right? Like, again, nothing against Matthew Lillard. It's just, it's not something that I think is crazy, but I do think it's an interesting point of conversation of like, is Scream 5 and 6, was it too brutal? Was it too over the top, right? Should there be a happy balance of almost comedic serial killer versus brutal, dark serial killer, right? I think that there should be no in between. I think personally it should be a dark, brutal Ghostface. Again, I understand the gun statement. I understand, the shotgun statement. Like I said, you don't want Ghostface just running around with a shotgun, just shooting everybody. Because again, it's a quick, precise. it's what I want as far as Ghostface kills getting in and out. But it's also loud. It's all the knife is very quiet. It's very it's again a very intimate type of interaction with somebody, right? The Joker in The Dark Knight, where he talks about, you know why I like a knife, right? You want to know which one of your friends are cowards, right? It's that element. You get that. It's brutal. It's all, but that's always what it's been. It's always been that, So again, I don't really understand the comment of it essentially being too over the top. And again, it's nothing to do with Matthew Lillard or Stu or anything like that. I just thought it was a great point of discussion. I thought it was a great point of conversation. So it's not anything where I'm like, oh, wait, what is Matthew Lillard talking about? Right? No, it's not. It's nothing like that. I don't quite understand the point of view. It's something that I would love to sit down with Matthew Lillard and kind of get a little more expansion on. And kind of have it would be awesome to just have a fun back and forth conversation on that. Kind of get his point of view more rather than, it's just kind of a thing in an interview that's kind of a throwaway, right? He's just kind of commenting on the thing rather than I'd love to kind of hear his perspective on that more to where maybe I'd have a better understanding, a better grasp on exactly what he meant and how he meant it. Because I don't really get it, given you look again, classic 96 Scream that he was a part of was incredibly dark for that time and incredibly brutal. But again, just a fun conversation. Let's be kind to each other down in the comments. Just wanted to kind of use this as an interesting talking point to kind of spark conversation. It's not anything that's too serious. I don't, again, I'm not taking it as whoa, I can't believe Matthew Lillard said that. No, I thought it was very interesting. That's not something that I expected to hear from somebody from, the Scream franchise, right? I could see somebody, from another franchise, something like that, maybe commenting on it in that manner. But I did. I just think it's a fun point of conversation that Matthew Lillard sparked. So thank you, Matthew Lillard, for that spark of conversation. So let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? Either way, whether you agree with me and you think yes, got to keep the brutality, whether you're no, keep it clumsy and a little silly, or you're in the middle where you're I want a little bit of both. Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.